Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi is dead, and the world wants answers, or perhaps we should say better answers. According to the Saudi government, when the outspoken critic of the country's king and the crown prince entered the Saudi consulate in Turkey, he met his death during a fistfight with members of a rogue operation. One of the most widely read commentators on the Arab world, Khashoggi had been in self-imposed exile after fleeing Saudi Arabia in 2017 and was highly critical of the Saudi war in Yemen, among other policies. His final column for the Washington Post, entitled "What the Arab World Needs Most is a Free Expression," was published on October the 17th. To discuss the facts and potential consequences of this strange case, I'm joined in the Beijing studio by Hua Liming, former Chinese ambassador to Iran, and Harvey Zordin, senior research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. We shall also speak via satellite to Mr. Serkan Aurel, a political analyst and a writer in Istanbul. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui. Mr. Hua, what revelations do you expect President Erdogan to make to the media tomorrow?
I don't think Erdogan is going to reveal all the facts. Turkey is now swinging between the different interests of itself. So at least he will tell the world that Khashoggi was killed. He was not disappeared. He was killed, and killed by some Saudi people. But by which means and in which ways, I don't think he will tell all the truth. That's the story.
Harvey, what are your thoughts?
I respect the ambassador a great deal, but I have to disagree with him. I think he's revealing these facts in a political meeting of his party. I believe he's doing that for a reason, getting them ready for something. And most of the Turkish press now is friendly to President Erdogan. And because of that, there have been many leaks of information about what happened in the consulate that day, and they would not be coming out if it wasn't with the consent of the president or his office. So I think they're going to reveal a lot of things, and I'm waiting to see if he reveals one specific thing, which I think is a game changer. One Turkish newspaper this morning revealed that when Mr. Khashoggi went into the consulate, he was put on a call with the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, and asked to come back to Saudi Arabia. He said no. His fingers were then chopped off. He was lethally injected and then butchered after that. So I'm anxious to see if that's revealed tomorrow.
Then that'll be definitely the biggest event following the Arab Spring, the killing of a journalist who is known for being outspoken in criticizing the Saudi government. Then what is the most likely response from Washington? Look at the hefty arms sales of $110 billion US, and President Donald Trump has been pretty defensive of MBS, saying the royal family in Riyadh has been able to come up with credible evidence, credible claims about the killing and the death of the journalist. Harvey?
Well, Trump's all over the place on this. At first, he said it was a terrible thing and something would have to be done. Then after he talked to the king, he said, well, maybe there's rogue operators. And this is 2 weeks before they said these were rogue operators. So they were formulating their story for a long time. Trump is a bottom-line guy. He loves money. He wants that money, although people can't quite figure out where that $110 billion figure comes from. But we know the Saudis are the large, or maybe the largest purchaser of arms. I think Trump's going to take the money and run. On the other hand, I think Congress playing good cop, or bad cop in this case maybe, will issue as many condemnations as they can. But the bottom line is that I don't think Trump would sign any legislation if it were passed and to do anything short of maybe suspending arms sales for a short period of time.
Let me cross over to our Turkish guest speaker who's standing by in Istanbul, perhaps Mr. Sergen Oral. Hello. Now, can you tell us why, while most of the Arab countries and governments remain so quiet, your president, Mr. Recep Erdogan, decides to release details of what is said to be the tragic and brutal killing of the outspoken journalist Khashoggi? Why does Ankara decide to move so boldly in this direction?
I think let us clear that after all Turkey has two thinkings on this issue. First of all, Turkey's role is to reach the conclusion that will create a conviction. We will see this, and tomorrow President Erdogan's speech will be important about the details. 15 people came from Saudi Arabia and 18 people now arrested, Turkish people arrested. It shows that if Turkish authorities don't find all the details in a very first day, then it seems that Turkey would be blamed as a journalist killer. So Turkish newspapers are really focusing on two things. First, the Crown Prince Salman, and the second, especially why it has happened in Turkey. They think that Turkey has a more common issues with some opposition journalists and high-profile people from Arab countries. They are living in Istanbul, and also they are broadcasting to the Arab world. Their TV channels are here in Istanbul. By this killing, it shows that does Turkey a secure place? So now Turkey is questioning this. And the especially important thing is Prince Salman is under the target in Turkish media also. Why he sent 15 special agents for this issue? And the other thing is, he was in United States. He can get the documents from there. But then he moved to London. And with another Saudi guy, he arrived back to Istanbul to get this documents. And they said, it's okay, come after 5 days. Then everything was organized. All the consulate building was emptied, and nobody came for any visa issues, just Mr. Khashoggi. After all, today all the speculations and the scenarios are seen more clear that he is killed in the consulate. And also I saw a picture, very bad, a body of parted legs, and also even his a man's face skin is removed. We don't know exactly is the picture belong to him, but we know that two things happened. After the consulate building, in the same clothes, a Saudi man moved to touristic area to show that he is Khashoggi, but he was not. These are already taken from the cameras. And the other thing is, Turkish authorities know that Turkey and Saudi Arabia has a huge crisis coming from Qatar blockage. And after all, Turkey stands more than with the NATO allies. Also, Turkey stands with non-NATO allies like Russia, buying S-14 missiles, and also giving very importance to the China relations. Look at to the Belt and Road Initiative. Turkey is a big partner. So Turkey is not playing a role that are shaped with the NATO and the Western countries. So that was the second thing why this happened in Turkey. And later on, I would like to mention that Turks are seeing Trump as a blackmail, to blackmail to the kingdom. And Turks, they think that after this event, there will be a bill, and it will be $1 trillion for Saudi Arabia. Even EU countries, England, Germany and France will get $1 trillion, totally $2 trillion after Khashoggi's death.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador, what will happen to the relationship between Ankara and Riyadh after President Erdogan went through so many challenges arising from friction, even rivalry with Russia, the Kurds in the war-torn country of Syria, as well as the very interesting relationship with the Muslim Brotherhood that was cracked down upon by Egyptian president after the Arab Spring disrupted seriously the normal life of Egypt. Now, President Erdogan also promised to have zero problems along the border on the campaign trail, but now he seems to have so many things to address. What's going to happen?
Turkey and Saudi Arabia were very close allies when Syrian war started in 2011. And Turkey was among the leading nations involved in the Syrian war. And they have very close, Saudi Arabia and Turkey had very close cooperations in fighting against Bashar al-Assad. But things changed since 2016 when the coup had happened in Turkey. Turkey turned its oil policies, and Turkey has improved the relation with Russia, and Turkey's position in the Syrian war has changed. And if we seek the root cause, they are from different branches of Islam. And Saudi Arabia, the royal family belonged to the Wahhabi sections. And Erdogan and his party were very strong supporter of Muslim Brotherhood. And they were fighting together against Bashar al-Assad. But actually they were different branches. See the example of Qatar. Qatar belonged to the Muslim Brotherhood. And Turkey had very good relations with Qatar when Qatar was sanctioned by Saudi Arabia. So now Erdogan must have a calculation. How will he deal with the relations with Saudi Arabia when he is going to reveal all the facts about the Khashoggi issues? So I think I'm still expecting Erdogan what is going to say. It was not only the question of the truth. We will see the Turkish position.
And why does Tehran remain so quiet?
This is the question. Because Saudi Arabia authority has threatened Trump that if you have started sanctions against Saudi Arabia, we may have our relation improved with Tehran. So Tehran is silent to waiting, to expecting something happen in Riyadh. This is maybe the cause.
What do you think of the hunch by Ambassador Hua Liming that Iran and the arch-rival of Saudi Arabia might become friends overnight should the United States decide to impose sanctions as a result of the investigation?
In that region, such a crazy region, difficult region, I have to think about what Lord Palmerston said: there's no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. I believe it could happen, as strange as it seems.
Then President Trump got to weigh very carefully. Now,
but President Trump, I have to say, is conflicted on this. He's on record at various times, although denying it recently, of having very serious and large financial relationship with the royal family and with the Saudis.
But two Democrats from the House did submit a letter asking him to address questions like enrichment from the oil businesses in Saudi Arabia, personally for the presidential family in the D.C. What do you think of the impact of, the vow of Democrats to launch investigation? There's strong possibility that the Democrats will take back the House. What's going to happen next?
I don't think Trump's very religious, but he must be praying that the Democrats don't win, because there's about 100 potential investigations that the Democrats have tried to get the Republican colleagues to approve subpoenas for, and have been knocked down on all of them. So I think they have a list. And I think if they're elected, the Democrats are elected, it's going to be trouble time for Trump.
Now, Ambassador Hua Limin, I wonder if you agree with me. No wonder China's been singled out repeatedly by President Trump. Whenever he has a problem at home, China would always be the scapegoat. Do you think he's created so many noise against China? He's been so hostile to China to divert attention from dozens of litigations and lawsuits at home?
I don't expect the United States is going to revert his tensions against China, because in the list of Donald Trump, China still is in the top in the priority of his foreign policy. So whatever happens in Saudi Arabia, I don't believe that Donald Trump would turn to Saudi Arabia and to neglect China.
Let me go back to Mr. Aurel, the Turkish guest speaker, for his comments on why the Persian state of Iran remains so quiet.
Because Iran knows that what happens in the region, Trump is targeting Iran, with especially the Israel relations. Trump is securing Saudi administration and Turkey together, fixing together against Iran. If there is a target, like an Iran issue, and the second one is the security of Israel. All the policies seems based on this priority. The White House priority also shaped with the son-in-law. It seems like that son-in-law Kushner. So Iran and Turkey and also Russia having some common ideas and operations in Syria and also Iraq. And they don't want U.S. troops even in the borders of this region. Are they thinking to form a new state of Kurds, a satellite state supporting Israel and etc.? So this is the exact point. It's not only a criminal issue, the Khashoggi issue. Now it's a big issue, bigger issue than a political positions. I call this a geo-economic politics in these days. Turkey doesn't support even Prince Salman's the new Islamic views, but never can cut the ties with the Saudi Arabia because of the every year 100,000 pilgrims are going to Mecca and Medina, the holy sites. So this will be a not easy way to choose, but first of all, Turkey will show all the evidences and this things that happened in Istanbul, and also will demand from the West, I mean both US and EU, to show the highest potential of blaming to the Saudi authorities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aurel. I'll go back to you very quickly. I'll leave you there for the moment.
There is a coalition.
Mr. Ambassador and Mr. Zordin, there are two independent investigations going on. One is conducted by Ankara under the leadership of President Erdogan. The other is headed by MBS, the Crown Prince. So there will definitely be conflicting and competing claims about the results of the investigations. Now, caught in the crossfire between the Turkish side and Riyadh, what will be the position of President Donald Trump? Privately, you may say, because of the family business ties and other concerns like arms sales, he will be very reluctant to accept the brutal results of the investigation, not quite in favor of the Crown Prince. But what do you think? will happen to Donald Trump?
Whatever happens between the United States and Saudi Arabia, and I'm sure United States, Donald Trump will keep the relation of alliance between the United States.
How important is the relationship between Washington and Riyadh?
It's a relation of 7 decades since the end of the Second War. And Saudi Arabia has been a very important guardian of U.S. interests in the Middle East. During the Cold War, it's a guardian of the U.S. interests against Soviet Union. Now is the guardian against Iran. And the oil supply, of course, the United States is no more needed than the Saudi oil, but all oil price is accounted in dollars. And this is very important for the United States. And also the image of the United States. Well, the United States have such kind of allies with us, not only today, from today, since the 10 years before when 9/11 happened, many Americans, they suspected that Saudi Arabia was behind the big issue of 9/11. So United States administrations, not only Donald Trump, since George Bush and Barack Obama, they were under great pressure from U.S. public opinion that Saudi Arabia might not be the best friend of the United States.
Well, China remains a friend of all member states of the 22 Arab League since the end of the Second World War. And the questions I ask are supposed to be the suspicions, the Western media present. Now, question number one, Harvey. Western reporters complain that Saudi Arabia, Western media complains that Saudi Arabia doesn't respect freedom of religion. Look at the execution of a Shiite cleric a couple of years back. And this time around, the journalist who's known for being outspoken against the royal family was allegedly killed in such a brutal way. And if revelations of the Turkish newspaper were proved correct, then I'm afraid MBS will be in serious danger and trouble.
I think
what will be the consequences?
I think he's already in trouble. I think this is a real-life case of House of Cards. But
the United States is a flagship democracy. It says it respects the freedom of the media protected by the First Amendment. But what would happen if Crown Prince remains committed to the oil dollars, committed to the exchange of intelligence reports, committed to be a guardian of U.S. interests in the Gulf? Then what would be the reactions from Washington?
Well, the reaction from Washington would be mixed. On the congressional side, the House and the Senate, there would be strong condemnation. But I believe that Trump doesn't care about the values that are in place in America prior to his presidency. I think, like I said before, he wants to take the money and run. Also, the other factor is Jared Kushner is figuratively in bed with MBS, and Trump, I think, respects his son-in-law a lot and said during the campaign that he could solve the Middle Eastern problem in 2 weeks. Well, it's taking a little bit longer than that. And also, I'm wondering, now that MBS is being called Mr. Bonesaw by many people, whether or not this is going to influence his ailing father to take out the Crown Prince and put in somebody else in place. His father is ailing. He's cut off from a lot of facts from what I know. And so it's either a do or die thing right now to make a change in the leadership, future leadership of Saudi Arabia, or to go with MBS, and that's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, our American guest speaker here is very critical of the royal family in Saudi Arabia. But let me go back to Mr. Aurel for the Turkish analysis. Now, we've been discussing the decision by President Trump eventually as to results of the investigations, two different kinds of investigations. One is led and guided by President Erdogan, the other headed by Crown Prince himself. So what do you think will be the most likely scenario for Turkish government?
for Turkish government, it seems that Turkish government will again think on the relations with Saudi Arabia. He will not deal with Prince Salman, I mean the president, Turkish president, but he didn't cut the ties with King Salman. That is another point. But you know, Turkey will show to the West that Mr. Khashoggi's killing is an organized crime, and he will show some videos and pictures the bodyguards of Prince Salman who are also involved to this event. So then the Western world will think and talk on this issue more clearly, because still from the Saudi side, and also even you know, the Secretary of State.
Yeah, Mr. Aurel, we only have 3
Yes.
minutes basically left. Let me ask you quickly, broadly speaking, what's going to happen in the Middle East? Do you think the process of the war in Yemen will be reversed? Do you think something dramatic will happen to the relationship between Tehran and Riyadh? And do you think the relationship between Ankara and Riyadh will deteriorate sharply as a result of the revelations by President Erdogan? Give me a broad picture about the Middle East, please.
This dramatic event will make all the relations worse. We can tell you that Turkish administration have an anger on Saudi Arabia, and coming from two things, both Qatar issues and also supporting to the YPG terrorists in the border of Turkey. After all, Turkey will not let Saudi and Turkey relations good as before Khashoggi went.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ambassador, what do you make of his analysis of this general picture?
I think that the Middle East would remain itself, and the most probably the scenario is that this 15 people, the rogue team, will be the scapegoat. And
one has been killed in a road accident.
Yes, one has been killed.
Do you think more will be killed in more road accidents?
Killed or not, they will be the scapegoat, and everything will return to the first days.
Do you think things will go back to normal despite the prosecution of the 15 or 18 guys who are alleged to have been involved?
I don't think they'll go back to normal for a long time, if ever. I think that because I believe that there'll be a power struggle going on in the House of Saud that is not determined at this point. It's a time of great instability. And I think about President Erdogan, he sees himself as a modern-day sultan. And in 2023, the 100th anniversary of the Turkish Republic, he wants to be that sultan, and I think he'll maneuver in every way to be there.
On the other hand, the European leaders have vowed to consolidate their united front in their crusade against Saudi Arabia, even before results of the investigation eventually and thoroughly emerge. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.